Hello, jewelry friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. My name is Desiree, and yes, I am your jewelry reselling bestie. All right, some resellers may hate me after today's episode because we're going to talk about how to buy jewelry in bulk for reselling. And I'm going to share with you all of the websites that I have used, that some of my friends who are jewelry resellers have used, and websites and sources from some of the top jewelry resellers who are making the most money right now. All right, so that's going to be the topic for today. And this is coming as a request from one of you because I briefly mentioned this, I think, in the last podcast episode. And a few of you reached out and said you would love for me to do an episode dedicated strictly to how to find jewelry to buy to flip for a profit. All right. So before we get into that, I like to always remind you to head on over to our website, which is jewelryresellerspodcast.com, because over there you can opt into our newsletter. And when you do that, you will get my personal list of the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that I think all resellers should know. And you can also click around there and find all kinds of jewelry goodies that I've got for you. There's blog posts, past episodes. I've got ebooks and guides, some recommendations on some tools that may help you do what you do a little bit better. So please take a visit. And if there's something that's not working, don't hesitate to reach out and let me know. All right, friends. So let's go ahead and get into today's topic because this is something that I've kind of shared in bits and pieces on past episodes, because I think that this is the hardest part of being a jewelry reseller, is finding the type of jewelry that you want to find in order to resell for the profit, for the money that you want to make. This is something that every reseller struggles with, getting inventory. Some people have developed systems for this, which is something that I recommend. Some people just get lucky, right? We're not going to discount that. And some people are just very resourceful and educated and knowledgeable about what it is they sell, so they know exactly where to go to find it. So if you are just getting started as a jewelry reseller, or I've also heard it called a jewelry flipper, you really want to take notes on this episode, because I'm going to be sharing all of the sources that I know of to find jewelry to resell, to flip for a profit. All right, so when it comes to buying in bulk, I think this is a really good strategy. And I know if you are a full-time reseller, this is probably the main way that you source, is you buy in bulk. Some of you who may do this for a hobby or maybe just whenever, you may source your jewelry piece by piece. And there really isn't a right or wrong, better, best, not good, good way of doing it. So whatever works for you, depending on what your goals are, and the whole, I guess, goals of your business, that's going to determine how you source, what you source, where you source, all of those things. All right. So if you don't know, buying in bulk means to buy large quantities of jewelry, usually mixed lots, or in some cases, it also means to buy wholesale. All right, so there's a couple of ways you can do this. I have done both. I have sourced wholesale lots of brand new jewelry, and I have purchased bulk lots of, I guess, pre-owned or estate jewelry, and it's been a mix of modern, vintage, handmade, whatever. Okay, so those are the types of bulk lots that will be available to you if you are sourcing this way. All right, there's wholesale, like I mentioned, and that is usually brand new jewelry, and you usually get the same styles, or you get quantities, larger quantities of similar styles. So you may get 10, 20, 30, 40 pieces of the same exact necklace. You may get a mix of maybe 6 different types of jewelry pieces, but they're all by the same brand or maybe the same designer. All right, so that's pretty much how wholesale works. And usually, if you're going to buy in wholesale, you need to buy a lot. Okay. Not that you have to buy thousands and thousands and thousands of pieces, but usually it will be in the hundreds in order for you to get the best deal and in order for some wholesalers to actually want to work with you. Okay, so keep that in mind. Next up, we do have vintage or estate lots or vintage estate lots. These can be thrifted, these can be auctioned online or in person. You can also find mixed jewelry lots sometimes when you are at yard sales, antique malls. That's where I have found some. So, vintage estate lots are also considered a way of bulk buying jewelry. Okay. Now, the other thing that I've talked about, this was years ago. Well, I shouldn't say years, a year ago. Mystery lots, right? Now, these are very hit and miss. So buy at your own risk. I don't really recommend mystery lots as a way to get jewelry for reselling purposes. But again, that comes with a few caveats, right? Like if you just want craft jewelry pieces, you don't care if they're broken, you don't care if you know you have both earrings or if it's missing stones, whatever the case may be, then some of these mystery jewelry lots or jewelry boxes could work for you. Um, I used to buy them a lot when I first started, but I don't really so much now because the quality has definitely gone down. Back in the day, you could find some really nice pieces. You could find real gold, sterling silver, high end vintage jewelry in some of these mystery boxes. I don't see that too much anymore, and the reactions that I'm hearing are pretty much mixed. Some people say they're still having good luck, but the majority of people are not. So, again, um, do so at your own risk. Okay. And finally, there is scrap repair craft lots, which are for parts and repurposing, selling to crafters, selling to people who are going to maybe upcycle the jewelry in some way. Okay. So those are the main ways that you can buy jewelry in bulk: wholesale, vintage estate lots, mystery lots or mystery reseller boxes, and then scrap or craft, or sometimes I've seen them called junk lots as well. All right, so I have purchased all of these in one way or another on multiple occasions. And, you know, sometimes you win big, sometimes you lose big. So it's just a matter of you being knowledgeable and being willing to do the research and take the time to learn where you can get the best lots for the best price. And that's what we're going to talk about today. All right, so now let's move into the best places to buy jewelry in bulk, because that's really what we all want to know, right? I know when I was first getting started as a jewelry reseller, I was able to buy a lot of jewelry at the thrift stores locally before jewelry reselling was really popular. Now, my thrift stores do still sell jewelry, but of course, everything has been picked over. Every now and again, I might get lucky and find something, but it's not really the most efficient way for me to source jewelry because, again, you're sourcing on a piece by piece basis and everything is priced individually, so you may not necessarily be getting the best price. And I don't really find the volume of jewelry pieces that I need in order to make the money that I want to make. All right, so you can still source that way if you have thrift stores or, you know, I don't know, antique malls in your area where you could find a lot of jewelry pieces. But just keep in mind the time it's going to take you to sort through everything if you are sourcing piece by piece. And I'm not saying you can't do that. You totally can. Again, it's just going to depend on how much time you have, how much knowledge you have, and then what your budget is as well. Okay, so let's talk about online marketplaces as it relates to sourcing jewelry. And I'm going to start with the most obvious one, and that's eBay. All right. A lot of people were surprised when I shared not too long ago that I actually source and sell on eBay. Although I don't do as much as I used to, but you totally can do that. You can buy wholesale jewelry lots on eBay and then turn around and list those pieces for sale on eBay as well. There's nothing There's no rule that you're breaking saying that you can't do that. You totally can. As a matter of fact, some of my jewelry reselling friends, the ones who I know making the most money, that's exactly what they do. All right. So remember that eBay is an option for you to source. Okay, and everybody's familiar with eBay. A lot of us sell on eBay. We know how it works. There's hundreds, maybe thousands of listings for mystery lot, or well, I shouldn't say mystery lots, reseller lots or bulk jewelry lots. But you will have to do some, you know, some sorting through and really studying the listings to make sure you're getting what you want. All right, number two, we all know this one too, shop Goodwill. All right, shop Goodwill. Back in the day, it used to be the place where everybody was getting their jewelry and we were getting some really good stuff. Like I said, it's kind of hit or miss now, and the prices have really gone up. I used to buy like 5 pound jewelry bags for around $50. Now, those same jewelry bags are going in upwards of 70, 80, sometimes over $100. All right, so you can still find some good things, but like I said, it's hit or miss. And Shop Goodwill doesn't really have the best photos, and descriptions. So you really are at a disadvantage as it relates to that. But like I said, some of my reseller friends, that is the only way they source, and they do find some really good items. All right, number three is Whatnot. Okay, I've sourced on Whatnot. And sometimes it works out great, sometimes it doesn't. But Whatnot is another place where a lot of resellers look for inventory, especially jewelry resellers. All right, now I want to say probably around the pandemic time was really when a lot of people were starting to get into sourcing this way because, of course, we all were in lockdown and we didn't have any other option. But it's still a really good way, especially if you have certain sellers that you like to buy from because you know that their inventory is really good, or you know that they are giving you the best price. The only thing about Whatnot sourcing on there is that it does take a lot of time, right? You have to actually sit through those shows. Sometimes you may have to bid on the pieces individually. Sometimes they may have lots that they're running auctions on, but you may be bidding against a room full of other people. All right, but it is a way to find jewelry in bulk. So if you have the time, that could be a good option for you. All right, another option that this is one I have not done, and this is Etsy. I know one jewelry reseller who sources on Etsy, and she says because there's way less competition as opposed to eBay. And she says Etsy has really like more unique stuff. All right. I've never sourced on Etsy, although, like I said, I know people who do, and they say it's a really good option. Now, the thing about Etsy is that it tends to be a little bit more pricey than some of the other sites that I've mentioned. But if you want really unique stuff that not everybody's going to have, it may be worth considering and at least checking out to see if there is something there that could work for your business or, work within your budget. All right, so there's also auction sites, and this is what I really want to talk about, and I really want you to um, learn this because if you can get comfortable and if you can learn how to pay attention to auction sites and researching them and knowing how to search for jewelry on these auction sites, I think that you will do really, really well. All right. So the auction sites that I know resellers are buying jewelry, bulk jewelry lots on are number one, highbid.com. Number two, proxybid, proxybid.com. Number three, maxsold.com. And number four, auctionninja.com. So you want to start looking at these auction sites and getting familiar with how they work, get your account set up, and start learning and paying attention to these auction sites so you can find bulk jewelry and get really, really good deals. I have gotten some amazing deals on Hybid, and it's crazy because surprisingly, a lot of resellers don't want to invest the time and energy, and in some cases, study it takes to learn how to navigate these sites. But if you're willing to do that, I'm telling you, you will win. All right. Now, the only thing about these auction sites is that it does require you to check in frequently. And especially if you've got some bids on something, you may have to constantly be checking throughout the day, throughout the night, and seeing where you are as it relates to the price, for the auction, for whatever it is. And you also have to pay attention to some of the fees that some of these auction sites will charge. All right, because sometimes there's a bidder fee or something like that. I think that's what it's called. Sometimes there is a shipping fee, which is not the cost of the shipping; it's a fee, and then the shipping costs. That happened to me. So you got to be careful, and you got to make sure you read everything. And that's the other thing too, is you want to make sure that the auction site does ship, because a lot of these auctions are all over, all across the country, and so some of these sellers only offer local pickup, and so you want to pay attention to that to make sure that they ship to you, or if it's local to you, you can go pick it up. All right. So there's a lot to learn, but it's not impossible. And if you are on these sites, maybe just 5-10 minutes a day while you're learning, you'll start to pick up and you'll start to see what's available, what the prices are, and how these auction sites work. Okay. All right, so those are the online marketplaces as it relates to sourcing jewelry in bulk. Now, I want to talk about some offline places on how to source jewelry in bulk. Okay, so, and I've mentioned these on the podcast before, but for the sake of creating a very holistic view of this process, I'm going to mention these same sources here. All right, number one is estate sales. Okay, estate sales, yard sales, garage sales. I've shared before that I was able to score a really nice vintage jewelry lot for only $40 because the woman just wanted to get rid of it. And I happened to be the first one at that yard sale when I bought it. And so you can find some amazing deals. All right. But again, this is going to take time for you to plan, for you to wake up, for you to show up, and then to have some cash set aside so you can take advantage of these deals when you find them. All right. So that's estate sales, yard sales, garage sales. The next one is flea markets. In our area, they're called kind of like swap meets. I guess depending on where you are, it's either a flea market or a swap meet. Indoor swap meet is the one we have here in Las Vegas. But we've got a few. We've got a few. And that's another way for you to, find bulk jewelry. All right. And I want to throw out there too the antique mall, because my antique mall, well, my favorite antique mall does do, they're called parking lot sales, which are kind of like a flea market in the parking lot of the antique mall. And I've been able to find some amazing jewelry that way too. All right, so keep that in mind. Also, local in person auctions. I know there's, depending on where you are in the country or maybe in the world, not everybody has access to local in person auctions. We used to have them here in Vegas, but now since the pandemic, they've all moved online. And so, the only time you're in person is when you go to pick up the stuff that you won. But in-person local auctions is another good way for you to source bulk jewelry. All right. Finally, on my list, I have thrift stores. We talked about that. Again, that's going to be hit or miss, and you might not get the volume of pieces that you're looking for. Because if even if you just list 5 or 10 pieces of jewelry a day, that's going to be 30 to or 35 to 70 pieces a week. that you need to source, and will you find that at a thrift store? Like, will you find 70 pieces that are all flippable, right, that people would want, that you actually can make a profit on? I haven't been able to do that solely sourcing at a thrift store, so I've had to incorporate other methods to find bulk jewelry. But again, you may have thrift stores that are better than mine, and you may be able to do that, which is fantastic. All right, so next up is, and I talked about this too, wholesale suppliers. You can source jewelry on sites like Alibaba. I think someone told me that they bought stuff on, was it AliExpress? Alibaba, AliExpress, also DH Gate. I don't know. I've never done source there, but I've heard some people do. So a lot of these are wholesalers or vendors that are overseas. So if you want to source jewelry that way, you're going to have to take into consideration the time that it may take for you to get your order, because if it's shipping from overseas, it could take weeks for you to get it. And then you can't really see the stuff in person. So if you don't like it, or if the quality doesn't meet your standards, you want to figure out what options you have as it relates to returns, refunds, and that type of thing. All right, but there's jewelry resellers out there making money sourcing this way. All right, so you're going to have to find a trusted supplier. You're definitely going to have to do your due diligence to make sure, because you don't want to get scammed, and you don't want to be disappointed with the jewelry that you source. Okay. Let's see. You can also do this locally as well. Like if you have local wholesalers or importers, if you have a fashion district where you live, I know in LA they do, in New York, of course, I think in Atlanta as well. But check out the fashion districts, because a lot of times you can find jewelry that way too, like, stuff for boutiques and things like that. So that's another option. Now, what I have done, I have sourced online wholesale, and I think it's nice to kind of have a mix, right? Because you have a mixture of new pieces, and then you have a mix of like the vintage stuff. So again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You just have to figure out what's going to make sense for you and what's going to make sense for your business. Okay. Now, I also wanted to throw this out there, because I know this show is coming to Las Vegas, and I think it's called like Rad Vintage or something like that. I can't remember the name of it, but it's a show that goes to different cities, and you can buy vintage clothing, vintage accessories. And I've heard that you also can find jewelry at some of these traveling shows. I know in Las Vegas we have like craft fairs and like fall festivals and things like that, where there are jewelry sellers there who are willing to sell their jewelry in bulk. So keep an eye out for those types of events that may be happening in your city. A lot of times it's seasonal, so it's probably not something you can count on year round, or it may only happen like once a year. And so maybe when it comes to your city for that one day or that one weekend, you can make a plan to go down there and check out and see, what they have, and maybe you can find some deals that way. All right. So those are like, I don't really know what they would be called, if they're called like traveling shows or, uh, like I said, fall festivals. That's what we have in Vegas. We have craft fairs that happen every weekend. We also have a little thing that happens in the arts district, and it happens the first Friday of every month. And if you're really into like the handmade jewelry, you can probably meet jewelry designers or jewelry makers directly, going to those types of little, like I said, arts district events. And I know someone who did that, and she met the jewelry designer, and then she sells the pieces. Um, well, she buys them from the designer wholesale or in bulk, I guess, and then she sells the pieces in her boutique. So you never know, right? It's all about relationships and connecting with people who may be able to introduce you to a source or introduce you to somebody who has exactly what it is that you're looking for. All right, so those are the ways that I know of to buy jewelry in bulk. But now I am going to talk about what to look for. I also created a list of do's and don'ts when it comes to buying jewelry in bulk. And I want to give you some tips on what to look for and what to avoid if you've never bought jewelry in bulk before. Maybe you've only bought your jewelry piece by piece and you want to get into buying bulk, buying jewelry in bulk. All right, so let's talk about what we should look for when we are buying jewelry in bulk. Number one, we always want to look for signs of value. All right, now this is going to vary depending on exactly what the jewelry is. All right, number one is always going to be well, I shouldn't say always, but these are some of the things. We always want to look for precious metals. All right. If if you can find somebody selling precious metals in bulk, that's pretty rare nowadays, but it does happen. All right. So precious metals, signed pieces, whether they're modern or vintage, costume, luxury, whatever, signed pieces always indicate higher value, usually. Natural stones, all right, gemstones, semi precious gemstones. I've talked about that on the podcast as well. You want to look for, pieces that may have gemstones in them. You also want to look at the clasps. All right. I'm a very picky clasp person, and I talk about this in my live shows all the time. But vintage clasp indicate a well-made piece, and so if you are looking at a pile of jewelry and you see some pieces that do have well-made clasp, or maybe you could see a signature or a stamp somewhere, that's a good indicator that that lot or that pile may be worth investing in. Okay. Now, the other thing you want to look at is the weight. Now, of course, a lot of times if you're buying this online or even in person at an auction, you can't handle the jewelry, you can't pick it up. Sometimes you can, but most of the time you cannot. So if the bulk jewelry lot is priced by pound, you want to pay attention to that, because I've seen lots like that, especially on eBay. They'll say 8 pounds of jewelry for $99, or whatever, or $10 for 1 pound of jewelry, whatever it may be. All right, so pay attention to that, and I can't really give you a hard number, as it relates to what is a good price and what isn't, because it's really going to be on an individual basis, because you have to look at what the jewelry is, because obviously jewelry that's made with, maybe beads or wooden pieces like that, are not going to weigh the same as jewelry that's made with metals, right? Whatever kind of metals. So just pay attention to the weight, depending on how they're selling it. And here's my thing. I really don't like to buy jewelry by weight like that, because I always worry about the condition. All right. And that's my next point, is the condition. All right. Are there missing stones? Are the pieces wearable? Um, are things going to be broken and tangled up? Not that I have a problem with tangled jewelry, but I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours detangling something before I can actually flip it. All right. I don't mind doing that a little bit here and there, but long gone are the days when I would, or that I have the desire to sit and untangle mounds of jewelry. I just don't want to do that. All right. So pay attention to that. All right. Because a lot of times, if jewelry is just thrown in a box or thrown in a bag, um, I don't know if the pieces are going to be in the condition that I want them to be in. All right. Now, I have seen bulk lots where they've been laid out on trays, um, or on a table. And so the pieces are, you can see each piece. Obviously, you're probably going to pay a little bit more for that, but at least you're going to be assured that the condition is what you want it to be. Now, the other thing you want to pay attention to is the potential for maybe grouping or bundling, maybe sets, maybe themes, maybe colors, maybe type, like all bracelets, all rings, whatever. All right. Because remember, I said a lot of people are looking to buy jewelry in sets now, right? Consumers want to buy in bulk too. They may not want 100 pieces, but they would love to get 5, 6 pieces in a set. Okay, so that's another way that you can also increase your average selling price. Okay, so let's talk about some red flags and beginner mistakes when you are buying bulk jewelry. Number one is buying mystery lots from random sellers with no feedback. Now, I'm not going to say this is always a red flag, but I'm very what would the word be? I'm very partial to someone who has been doing this a while, right? Because I want to see their feedback. Are people complaining about the lots they bought from this person? Or is everybody happy as clams with the lots that they bought from this person? All right. Very rarely will I buy something brand new from someone or someone who is brand new with no feedback unless I know them for, whatever reason. But I'm not willing to take a chance on someone with no feedback. That's just me. Obviously, this is going to be your own call, but we want to be careful, right? We just want to be careful. Number two, no clear photos or descriptions. Now, this is kind of a mixed opinion, at least in my opinion, because sometimes the listings that don't have the greatest photos sometimes have really great lots. They have really great jewelry, because the people selling it are not jewelry people. And so they don't know how to take great photos. They don't know how to use keywords in their listings. All right. But these are things that you will learn over time and you will start to see and recognize. Oh, this is something I want to pay attention to. Let me message the buyer or the seller and see if they have more information, or maybe they could send me a couple extra pictures or something like that. Now, the other beginner mistake is buying only based on price. I have done this because I said, wow, this is so cheap. Let's get it. All right. I've made that mistake more than once, friends. I have made that mistake. Now, the thing is cheap doesn't always equal profits, and cheap doesn't always equal flippable, right? As it relates to the type of jewelry that it is. So, understand that even though you're getting a better price by buying in bulk, you still may have to pay up just a little bit to get better bulk buys. Okay, this is something that's going to take you time to learn, and this is going to be something that the more you do it, the better you get at it. Now, there's nothing wrong with buying cheap bulk lots if your goal is to flip those for junk jewelry lots, craft lots, or whatever. That's totally fine. But I think most of us are in this to not have to resort to selling things super cheap or in junk lots. All right, but that's always an option. It's always an option. But remember, cheap doesn't always equal that you're going to make a profit off of it. Just because you get something for $1, it might only be worth $1, and nobody's willing to pay $2. All right, ask me how I know that. Ask me how I know. The other beginner mistake I have on my list is, and this is when you're a beginner, you don't understand what craft lots or junk lots are. Basically, it's kind of salvage jewelry pieces that are broken, damaged, missing stones, and people are going to use them to make something else, like I said, to upcycle in some way. All right, so that may not be your thing, but understand that when you see craft or junk lot in the listing, that already is an indicator for me that that's probably not what I'm looking for, because it also gives the seller a little wiggle room to put crappy pieces in there, because they can always go back and say, well, the listing said this was a craft lot, and then you can't really complain about that. All right. So if you're not looking for craft or junk lots, stay away from the listings that have the words craft or junk lots in them. Okay. All right. So, oh, I do have this. Okay. How to make your money back fast. You want to flip individual valuable pieces first. All right. If you find something that's a home run in your lot, get it listed as quickly as you can so you can flip it and you can do it all over again. Themed lots work really, really well. For example, boho earrings bundle, vintage brooch, grab bag, necklace lot, whatever. All of those work really, really well. Um, Go live and sell pieces. All right. I know not everybody is into live selling, but I have found that's the fastest way for me to move jewelry is doing a live show. I've said it before. I do really well on Poshmark and District, although I've been trying to do Whatnot the past couple weeks. It's been okay. It hasn't been that great. I don't know why I can't seem to make the Whatnot thing work for me, but some of you probably have better luck than I do. But like I said, the fastest way that I know how to move jewelry is doing a live show. Now, it doesn't mean you're always going to get the best price, but if you're looking to flip stuff really quickly, live selling, hands down, is the way to do it. And oh, I want to throw this out there too, a couple of tools to help you source smarter. Google Lens on your phone. All right. So if you see something online and you don't know what it is, run it through Google Lens. Or if you see it in person, take a picture and run it through Google Lens and see what comes up. All right. Because it can help you identify pieces, designers, markings, and so forth. A jewelry scale, testing kits for gold, silver, and stones. All right. These are things you would use at home, not while you're out and about. At least I don't think you would. Also, make sure you always have a loop and a jewelry magnet. I keep one in my purse. Okay, so whenever I'm out and I happen to come across some jewelry, I keep a loop, which is that magnifying glass, and then a jewelry magnet. And I also have a little tiny black light keychain. And they're really small, and I keep that in my purse. So I always have that with me. So no matter what, I've got a few things that'll help me research jewelry on the spot. And then, of course, my phone as well. Okay, so let me make sure I covered everything because I know this is a lot. But I want to give you guys, like I always do, as much information as possible. All right, so let's close out with this the do's and don'ts of buying jewelry in bulk. Do research your sellers before buying. I talked about that earlier. Check ratings, check past lot photos, the return policy, feedback, all of that stuff. You want to make sure you pay attention to that. Number two, do start small to test the waters before you dive right in. All right. If you've never bought jewelry in bulk before, I'm going to advise you to buy your very first lot something that's $100 or less, just so you can learn how the process of buying jewelry in bulk works. Don't do your very first buy, 500, 700, $1,000 if you've never bought jewelry in bulk before. I'm going to say for your very first one, keep it $100 or less. All right. So that way you learn exactly how to do this. All right. You want to zoom in on photos if you can, if you're looking online. You want to know your ideal customer. All right. What do your buyers want from you? What do they like? What are they constantly asking you for? This is going to help you in the bulk buying process. You also want to pay attention to your cost per piece. If you're buying 100 items, 200 items for a certain price, break down to how much that is per individual piece because that will help you in your pricing. Now, it doesn't mean that your pricing has to be dirt cheap, but it does mean that you want to be able to price so it's profitable for you. Okay, invest in the tools. We talked about that loop, scale, magnet, testing kits, and so forth. This will help you be able to assess jewelry on the spot. And you also want to document everything. I used to have a big notebook, a big spiral bound notebook where I would keep all of my bulk buy purchases. I don't have it anymore. I should start it up again. But it just helped me realize, how much I was buying, how frequently, how much I was spending, where I was buying, that type of thing. And all of that is good data for you to have, especially at the end of the year when you're trying to figure out, was this a good buy, and should I spend this much next quarter or next year or whatever. Okay, so try and keep track of as much as you can. All right, now let's go into the don'ts of buying jewelry in bulk. Don't fall for mystery boxes with no photos. I don't know why anybody would, but there are people out there who still do get very disappointed when they buy a bulk jewelry lot and there's only one photo, right? So if they don't have any photos, that's a red flag, and don't get caught slipping, right? Don't get caught with that. Be very careful. Be very wary. Number two, don't assume vintage means valuable. All right, I've made this mistake. Some vintage brands are mass produced or they're damaged beyond value. So look for condition and brand. You know, not every Trifari piece is worth something. Not every, um, not every vintage piece is going to be worth you taking the time to flip, list and whatever. So understand your brands, understand the value, and then learn what the market will pay for that type of jewelry. All right, number three, don't ignore damaged items. Know what's fixable, what's not. Missing stones or bent pins can sometimes lower the resale value. Now, I've said it before, not everybody um, is looking for pristine pieces. There are people who will buy damaged, broken items and fix it and repair it themselves. There are people that do that. But if you want top dollar, you want to try and stay away from those types of pieces, okay? Don't buy from sellers who mix fine and costume jewelry carelessly. This is a big one. All right, this is a big one. I've seen sellers do this. It's usually a sign that they don't know what they're selling, or they do and they're trying to hide it. All right, so and again, not all sellers are jewelry experts. I'm not going to say that, but if somebody's just got all kinds of stuff thrown in a pile and you can see that it's the cheap stuff, maybe there are a few high-end pieces in there, you want to be careful with that. Okay, sometimes you can use that to your advantage, but you just want to be very, very careful. All right, don't overpay because it's pretty. I've done this, friends. All right, this is business at the end of the day. Emotional buying can definitely kill your profit margin. All right, so I almost did this yesterday. I was at Goodwill. I saw a gorgeous necklace, but it was beautiful. But when I held it, it just felt really, really cheap. And I knew it wasn't good, but it was just so pretty. All right. Don't get caught in the, oh, it's so pretty trap. All right, don't forget shipping costs on heavy lots. You're going to pay up for the shipping usually. All right, I talked about that. Don't only rely on photos. Be willing to message the seller if you have additional questions. And be specific. Are there signed pieces in this lot? About how many pieces are in this lot? All right, be specific with your questions. Also, you don't want to go in blind with wholesale suppliers. You can ask for sample orders. You can check reviews on places like Reddit, reseller forums, and avoid vendors or wholesalers who don't respond in a timely manner. Now, I understand because of the, where they may be overseas, there could be a time issue, time zone thing. But if they don't respond within a few days, I wouldn't do business with them, because God forbid if you had a problem, are they going to get back to you? Right. And you want someone who gets back to you in a timely manner. So that is what I've got for you, friends, for this episode and how to buy jewelry in bulk for reselling, for flipping, for a profit. If there is anything I may have missed, please let me know, because, like I said, some resellers, may hate me for sharing this information. But here's the thing. Um, I believe that there is plenty out there for all of us, and we just have to get smarter looking for this stuff. All right. And these are some ways that you can do it that I talked about in this episode. So, like I said, if there's anything I may have missed or maybe I didn't include, let me know. Let me know your feedback. Let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Are you sourcing jewelry in bulk? I would love to know what's working for you and what's not. All right. And if I get a lot of feedback on this episode, I would love to do a follow up and share more resources with you all. All right. So, like I said, that's going to be it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was helpful. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me, and I'll check in with you again really soon.